All right, so let's start with the Costière de Nîmes and a beautiful photograph by just so you can see the landscape. And the first one showed you the Rhône and just the spirit of the place. And let's go back, please, one slide. Li Ming, we need to go back. There we are. Thank you. So that's great. So that's a great photograph of the landscape. And forward one slide, please. And so the first expression there is fraîcheur maritime, and that means vibrancy of a maritime climate. As Sabine noted, it's the southernmost AOP in the Rhône, and that means it's closest to the Mediterranean, and that means that there's ocean and marine influence. And so you have this warm Mediterranean climate, but at the same time, you have a diurnal shift at night because you have marine influence and breezes and cooler temperatures. In 1986, Costière de Nîmes was awarded an AOC, and since 1989, it's been part of the Rhône Valley Association Inter-Rhône. Last year, the production, 3,680 hectares, equals about 177,594 hectoliters. The average yield here is 54 hectoliters per hectare. And for those of you like me who are metrically challenged, the conversion is 1 ton to the acre to 13.5 hectoliters per hectare. So the average there is about 4 tons to the acre, just over, which is really, really low for a large area. In terms of export markets, 40% of the total production is exported, and China, US, and the UK are major markets. And next slide, please. A little bit of history about the area. One of the things for me, and I have to tell you, I'm a huge fan of antiquity in Roman and Greek history. And so I was thrilled to be in the Southern Rhône last year. In fact, in Arles, there's a remarkable Roman antiquity museum. But the history of Costière de Nîmes goes back to the 5th century BCE, where Greeks began to develop viticulture and winemaking. In 31 BCE, the Roman legionaries returning from the Egyptian campaign, and by the way, that's the same campaign that involved Cleopatra and Mark Antony, but they settled in what is now Nîmes and expanded vineyards and winemaking.
Can I interject there, Tim? Isn't that the genesis of their the palm and the crocodile expression, that logo that you see, that we see?
It's exactly it. Yeah, good thought, Madeline. Fast forwarded to the Middle Ages, the Abbey of Saint-Gilles was founded in the 12th century, and with it, the establishment of the Knights of Hospitalier of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, and that was one of many medieval Catholic military orders. Also in the Middle Ages, in the 14th century, the Papal Schism at the Avignon Papal Court, the wines of Costière de Nîmes were among the most popular. And then finally, in the 20th century, well, kind of a hybrid of the 17th century, 20th century. First of all, the building of the Canal du Midi in the 17th century, which served as a long time as really a water artery between inland Costière de Nîmes and the Mediterranean. And then finally, in 1955, the construction of the Canal du Bas-Rhône du Languedoc, which supplied water from the Rhône and really expanded agriculture and viticulture throughout the area. I mentioned a few moments ago what's important about Costière de Nîmes and what sets it apart from other appellations in Rhône that are further inland and landlocked is its proximity to the Mediterranean. And that means there's marine influence, and at night that means a wider diurnal shift, that the land and the vines have time to cool off, to basically respire from the heat of the day. And that means that the grapes retain higher natural acidity, and the wines also retain higher natural acidity. And here are the numbers and things at a glance for the region. In terms of wine styles produced, 7% are white, 43 are rosé, and then 50% are red. Last year in 2019, production 3,680 hectares, producing 177,594 hectoliters. Here's a list of the major grape varieties. We need to go back, thanks. So white grape varieties, Grenache Blanc, some of these not a surprise that you find in other places in the Rhône, such as Marsanne and Roussanne, Herbelon Claret. Verbentino is a surprise for me. And of course, Viognier. Red grapes, of course, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre being really the stalwarts, and then also Carignan and Cinsault. The production farmed organically, the percentage is 14%, and it's increasing all the time. Major soil types include pebbles, which are locally called grès. These are literally pebbles from the Rhône that have washed inland over thousands of years of time. That combined with sand and clay and limestone. And at this point, I'm going to bring in Michel to tell us more about it because he knows more than I'll ever know. Michel, please.
Hi. Am I on? You guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that you hit, you and Madeline have hit all the major points about the appellation. I think that we are part of the Rhône Valley because our soil was of the same creation as the rest of the Rhône Valley. It was pebble deposits about 1 to 2 million years ago. What makes us unique and different is our microclimate. And as you explained, those thermal winds, and just by the way, the body of water that we saw on that first picture are the marshes of Camargue. That's how close the vineyards are to the water. And the Mediterranean is only a few miles behind those. So the vineyards are really against the Mediterranean, and that does create a very unique microclimate within the Rhône Valley. I think that even though the area has been producing wines for several thousand years, we are new to the quality game, and in the sense that there is a resurgence in the appellation because of the younger generations are coming back in. People are totally convinced about the potential of the area, and the appellation is finding its stride, and its stride is mostly focusing on wines of balance, of freshness, of good acidity. Sometimes the best expression have a little saline quality in the back end. All that microclimate can allow us to do. So as you guys are tasting probably the first wine, a few words on Chateau Beaubois is a very good example of what is still a minor production in Costières. As you saw on the slide, whites only represent 7%, but by and large, it's a great color for our zone. That microclimate allows us to produce wines with crisp, fresh fruit, high acidity, and very surprising for the Rhône Valley. I mean, when we present all our wines, usually people come out saying, I love the wines, but the wines that really surprised me the most are the whites. So here, a very classic, beautifully done example of white Costières de Nîmes, predominantly relying on Grenache Blanc, which with Roussins are the two main white varietals in Costières. Again, a good example of a family winery with Fanny and François, the younger generation that has come back and is really developing this estate. And their property is right at the bottom of Costières, right against the marshes of Camargue.
So, I have it in my glass. Do you mind if I describe what I'm perceiving?
Please.
Unless you have it also?
No, I don't, unfortunately.
I'm very excited about what you're saying, because it's really, if we can go back to the previous slide, please, just so everyone can see the stats on the wine. I'm going to describe it before I read the statistics, actually, because this wine just has wonderful mouthfeel. It's lush and flavors of, stone fruit, peach. It's certainly not acid deficient, but just enough acidity to be vaguely mouthwatering and refreshing, but it's a mouthful all by itself. It speaks to perfectly ripe, not overripe. melons, peaches, apricots, and such. I just love the mouthfeel. Reading the statistics, you can see that the fermentation takes place in 450-liter casks. It does have lees aging, not super extensive, Zippo oak on this. There's a little dash of Viognier. I don't know as I get it aromatically, but it's certainly, you know, maybe there's a floral characteristic that carries gently and quietly through to the palate as well, but it's really Grenache with a teeny splash of Roussanne. Looking at their website, speaking to Michelle's point, the brother and sister are young indeed, and so is their whole team. And they are organically farmed, and they're proud to say they're halfway between Nîmes and the Mediterranean, and they credit the Mediterranean breezes and the Mistral for keeping the mildew down. I have a quick question for Michelle, because the stones in the area, first of all, do you pronounce it Grès because it's in the south as opposed to Grès? Is that correct? And
I pronounce it Grès.
And that adds to the diurnal shift, the lower nighttime temperatures, correct? Because the stones, can you speak to that? Because that's a very interesting point.
Yes, actually, when during the day the sun hits the pebbles, and they get superheated. So let's say on a hot day, if you try to grab a large pebble at like 3 p.m., it's so hot you can't hold it in your hands. Okay, because usually they are of a dark color and they absorb the heat, so they radiate that heat and they amplify the temperature difference between the air that sits on the Mediterranean and the air that sits on the land. So what we call them thermal winds, and they blow part of the day one way, part of the day the other way. Think about it. The sea has the same temperature at night or during the day. Okay, if you go swimming at midnight or at noon, you pretty much feel the same way. But the land is cool at night and is warm during the day. And the shift occurs around half day solar time. Okay, so for us, it's like 1 to 2 p.m. Then the soil gets way hotter than the sea. The air that sits above rises, and it creates a pull, and the air that sits on top of the Mediterranean gets brought in. And that air is not only cooler, but it's more humid. And it kind of gives a breather to the vine that is stressed from not just the temperature, but also the dryness of the air.
Thanks so much for speaking to that. It's just so interesting.
I think that those who live in California can probably grasp really well that phenomenon. We frequently have fog in the morning as well, not as drastic as what you see on the California coast, but it's the same logic.
Thank you very much. And I hope those of you who have the kits are enjoying the wine as much as I do. It certainly doesn't need food, though it can accommodate all sorts of, spices and flavors. We can go on to the next slide, Li Meng.